All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming down to join us this evening at the FCCT. My name is Napa Kongsawad. I am a fellow here. Today we'll be joined by three guests. I have one with me right now, Dr. Rasmon Kalayasiri from the Center for Addiction Studies. And one coming with us through Zoom is Dr. Pimrapee. She is a former Democrat MP and is currently in Krabi. So to not waste any more time, Dr. Rasmon ครับ สวัสดีครับ could you take us on a brief overview in the eyes of the Center of Addiction Studies on what has changed in terms of numbers, patients since legalization 2 years ago?
Yes, sure. Yes. Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to talk about the cannabis situation in Thailand. I'm from the Center of Addiction Studies, Faculty of Medicine, Chulalongkorn University, and we have monitored the prevalence of cannabis use in Thailand for several years. And for right now, after 2 years of legalization, we found a sharp increase of prevalence of cannabis use in Thailand. And you can see from the first slide, next slide please, that the Thai population aged 18 to 65 years had a higher rate of cannabis and kratom use in 2021 to 2022 than those in 2019 and 20. And you can see that the increase is like 20 times higher than the time before the legalization. And when we see, we categorize by age, you can see that it's very concerning because Thai teenager aged 18 to 19 had 10 times increase of smoking cannabis, which from 0.9% in 2019 to 9.7% in 2022. And not only the use of cannabis, but also the impact of use as well. You can see from the next slide that this is a treatment system for substance use in Thailand. Previously, we have 3 systems. First is a correctional treatment system. The second in yellow is compulsory treatment system, and the green one is voluntary treatment system. In the last column, sorry, still the same slide. In the last column, it is in 2022, and you can see the number of people who use substance. This is for illegal substance, not only cannabis, but include yaba, heroin, everything. You can see that in 2022 is an increase of patients from the treatment system in Thailand, and that is because we have a new drug laws. At the time, the new drug laws try to see the persons who use drugs as people who need help, not to get them into the prison. So at the time, the government or policemen arrest people who use drugs fewer than before. And at the time, we didn't say that how many or what is the amount of drugs that we will consider as that person to be the user or the person who used drugs. But right now, we just the government just issue the amount, for example, like yaba or methamphetamine, that if someone have a possession more than one tablet or one pill, and that means they not considered as a user. They will be considered as like a person who sell drugs. So in 2022, you can see that we didn't have that number yet, that how many pills that people who use yaba will get arrested or not. So people who get into the system, even compulsory treatment system or correctional system decrease, but you can see that voluntary treatment system increased, and that because people can be freely choose that if they be arrested because they use drugs, which is still illegal, they can choose that they will go to get the treatment or go to the prison. So you can see the voluntary treatment system, the person who get into this system increase. So next slide, please. The previous slide is for the person who get arrested and sent for the treatment. But this slide is the person who get ill or get sick from using drugs. And this is the example from cannabis. You can see here that the patient, Thai patient who use universal coverage scheme for any illness caused by cannabis increased a lot during recent 2 years. And this is just for one example. For the patients, this is an inpatient, not the outpatient. So if you see the number of outpatient, we see a lot more of number of these. And you can see that for the code here is the code for diagnosis from that is a sickness or illness from cannabis. For example, the blue one at the bottom is the F120, and F120 is the diagnosis code from WHO, which is the acute intoxication from cannabis. You can see that the blue color increased during the recent years. For the F121, which is in orange, it is the person who have harmful use, be diagnosed as harmful use of cannabis, increasing as well. For the F122, this is addiction or dependence, cannabis dependence. And for 122 is in the purple one, increasing as well. And for F125, this is very concerning because F125 is psychosis from cannabis. And you can see in the green color that for diagnosis of cannabis-induced psychosis increasing a lot. So that means we need to pay more because of more patients get illness from cannabis during the recent years. Okay, next slide, please. And sorry for the, I haven't changed it to English language yet, but this is just to show the number of each substance, illegal substance. For example, for yaba, for recreational cannabis, which include both oral form or smoking, and for medical cannabis, and also kratom as well. And this is the same figure with the as the first slide that say that for cannabis recreational use in 2023 and 22, recreational cannabis increased a lot, which is about 29% of Thai population aged 18 to 65, while in 2021, the person who used cannabis recreationally will be only 6.2%. Okay, next slide, please. And since we have the survey around the country about the percentage of people who use cannabis, and we need to know that what is the cost of illness by cannabis. So by doing that, we use the population attributable fraction, which is the fraction that we estimate that person who use cannabis would get sick from any cause from cannabis. For example, intoxication, maybe addiction, dependence, or psychosis. So we use a PAF with 8%, and by that, you can see here that in total, in the year 22 and 23, around almost 1 million people will get sick from cannabis. Next slide, please. And by doing that, we can estimate the cost that we lost from the illness from cannabis. And you can see here that if we use the PAF population attributable fraction, not 8% but to 18%, which means that we estimate that the person who use cannabis might use it more regularly. So you can see here that the cost that we predict from the universal cost scheme will increase a lot in 22 and 23. For example, like for 2019, the total cost, which is the cost from inpatient to be outpatient, or indirect cost, that means the cost that they need to pay because they could not go to work because they have psychosis or intoxication. So in total, in 2019, the cost would be about 3.7 million baht, 1,000 million baht. But in the year 22 and 23, the cost would be about 21,000 million baht. So it sharply increased for the total cost. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so that's our, and I just, this is just an abstract that I, just the recent report that not only the cost of illness that we are monitoring, but also the shops, cannabis shop, for example, in Bangkok, in Sea Lom and Khao San Road, and we like to see that how the shop operate, and we can divide it into the large shop, the medium-sized shop, maybe the store, and each kind of shop have different protocol for selling cannabis, and some of the shops didn't follow the measure, the protocol that need to be followed, and we also have monitoring the product of cannabis. Right now, we didn't see much about the cannabis drink, not popular, but at the time we tried to, 2 years ago, we tried to measure the amount of THC in each drink, and we saw that each drink, some of the drink have a high percentage of THC, for example. So this is just the basis to say that cannabis use after the legalization, it changed. They have an impact on the Thai population, for example, like increase the illness and increase the cost of illness, and then the shop is not well operated for some shops. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rasmon. On to the next question. I'd like to stick back to policy. Dr. Pimrapee ครับผม last year พี่ตั้มครับ Okay, we're back. ครับผมอาจารย์ last year you and the Democrat Party ran on a platform of being against recreational marijuana but pro the medical use of cannabis. How would medical use of cannabis be defined under this policy?
Yes, สวัสดีค่ะ Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. A greeting from Krabi. First of all, please accept my apologies of not being there because I've been engaged with the movies here. We have the shooting Jurassic 3 here in Krabi. Think about the cannabis. It's proof and the data has been proof that has been no longer benefit to the country. But if you look back to the policy 2 or 3 years ago when we ran a campaign for the cannabis, people thought that it would be, firstly, give more income to the farmers in the case of increase, the more agricultural products to the income. Secondly, they thought it's going to be the big move in tourist industry. And thirdly, lastly, they thought it's going to be only for medicine only. But this is a real conflict of what the policy has been implemented. And the act itself, sorry that I didn't have that paper with me, it wasn't clear and it wasn't stated at what the government has been telling to the people. So we have seen a lot of problems in that act. That's why people pose that back to be considered of the problems that has to be concerned, the lack of the responsibilities for the Minister of Health to be concerned with that, which we can be shown that right now. When we implement the system, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Justice has trying to say nothing about this kind of things. And in the village, as is has been proved for 3 years already, luckily that this act has been proved, through the parliament. In my municipalities where I have palm plantation, we found that, as doctor says, yaba or cannabis or the kind of drugs has been increased in the very big volume in which the local people cannot tolerate for that. In my plantation or the area nearby, every night we have been having like the drug, the addicted people coming around to sell yaba, cannabis at night all the time. And the police make no action because just as you said, the yaba of less than 5 yaba tablets is not legal. It's not illegal. So it's just proof that the government has done something wrong. And especially for the tourism, we prove that, it's not a good excuse to say that cannabis will bring good tourism in Thailand. Because in Krabi or in Phuket, we have seen a lot of cannabis shops and it hasn't been properly controlled by the Ministry of Health. As you walk around the Sukhumvit Road, Patong or Krabi, you will see a lot of cannabis that has been, used for recreation, not for medical. And to say that cannabis will help for the tourism, I would say no. For cost benefit analysis, it's totally we're losing a lot of tourists because of these cannabis policies. For example, like in China, Chinese won't allow people to come. Swedish has been increased, so we have a lot of low-income tourists will come for the drug. This is examples of the things that harmful to our country. So this is my point.
Thank you. Dr. Pimrapee, just to stick with you there on that point you raised about the tourism economy and cannabis. Now, it's been stated a lot that one of the main reasons for introducing this policy was to boost the tourism economy. Now, Krabi has always been a popular tourist destination. Could you share on your thoughts on how it has changed after legalization? I know you said that it hasn't been that good, but what I'm curious about is the types of tourists that come to the town. Has that changed over the years?
I said yes, because Krabi people, the target tourists, mostly we have the tourists as a family base, but it has been changed to be more teenagers that's coming from the cannabis. But anyway, I just ask questions deeply to you and all the audience, is like saying that, are you coming for Thailand for cannabis? Or are you coming for Thailand for the nice beach, the sunny and the people? So this is only the part of the things that which is used as an excuse to introduce this law, in which I think in the long run, especially the hotels, we don't agree that the cannabis will really help the tourism. If it does help, I don't think it's in the big part. It is not in the big portion. It's just not the gain. It's not sufficient to move the tourism industry. And if it is, we shouldn't bear Thailand on the case of, the place for cannabis. Otherwise, if the Cambodia, Laos, or any place introducing even free and better, cheaper cannabis than in Thailand, will the tourists move to that place? Or do you think that people is coming to Thailand for the good? For example, like we come, right now I'm busy with shooting foreign movies called Jurassic 3 here in Krabi. And we have had a very good income of this movie coming here into Krabi during the whole season. This is not about the cannabis. This is about the good, beautiful, friendly people and the sceneries of Thailand. This is not about the things that can be used as an excuse. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Okay, thank you ครับ Dr. Rasmon ครับtalking point that's been present the past couple years, both here and in the U.S., is cannabis' status as a gateway drug. Does the Center of Addiction Studies have any thoughts on if that status is well earned, or is cannabis as a gateway drug a bit overstated?
It has been debated for a very long time about the gateway drugs, for the soft drug for the person who use soft drugs and become user for the hard drugs. But for this, it's still controversial, because I think maybe both parties are correct. For example, you can see someone who start with the soft drug first, and that is because we do not have a good because it's more freely to use. So it's more accessible, so people can use it, and then they can turn to be a hard drug when they go to be the dependence on some drugs and need more drugs. That is harder, but that's not 100% true, because for the person who get addicted to something, there are many other factors. For example, their background, their cognitive function to control themselves, and that kind. Maybe they use soft drug because, like I said before, that is because it's more accessible. So they use soft drug, and then they become use the hard drug because of their own other factors as well. So I think when we talk about this, we need to say in both parts that, okay, for some person, they not turn to use hard drug. They just use soft drug. And for some person, they use hard drug. Another thing is that because some drugs, it might prime the brain for something that make them more accessible, more vulnerable to get addicted to some other drugs. But this need to be confirmed by many other research in the future, that if this is true or not, we need to do the brain imaging, to do the chemical laboratory work to say that when we use some drug prior to other drug, is it change the chemical or the brain structure or not, that make them susceptible to some harder drugs. Yeah.
ขอบคุณครับ พี่คิตตี้ครับ สวัสดีครับ Miss Chopaka is a longtime cannabis activist and entrepreneur. Kitty, I'm just curious on the legislative history of cannabis in Thailand. Obviously, there's traditional and herbal recipes using weed that trace back way longer than I've been alive. So when did this prohibition start, and how did it ramp up to the state where it is before legalization?
Hi everyone. First off, I would just like to kind of try to give myself a little bit of a relax, because I've been spending about the last 3 nights or so sleeping on the road protesting for cannabis, of course. And I haven't really been sleeping well, and I just came back from the health ministry after we had a negotiation that did not actually seem to go anywhere. So I'm just putting that right off the bat. So if I stumble on my words or whatnot, please forgive me. I really would prefer if I was sleeping on my soft bed. Okay, let's kind of go into it. So, going back to Thailand. Here's the funny thing. Did you know that Thailand, cannabis was actually illegal before the single convention actually ever existed? I think it was like 2522 or something, like there was an old law where cannabis used to be medicine, but then it actually became illegal to be used in medicine. But we just kind of really lax about it for a very long time until the single convention kind of came into play, that's where we got our Narcotics Act. And since that one was made, which was I think 2422 BE, I'm sorry with my numbers right now, but it's there. And it has made about 7 changes to where cannabis became available for medical use. That was back in 2019 February, where the consensus actually came during the junta parliament, I can recall, and that was in December 2018. So from there on, what happened was it meant that medical cannabis can be used, which means that the production and the cultivation of medical cannabis can be done legally. Loads of red tape, loads of rules that you have to go through. You can still see the evidence and the history of it in existing cannabis farms, especially if you're gonna go in and you see like there's a double door, or there's like this weird like layout that there has to be a viewing window in the grow room. Those were all original medical cannabis regulation if you wanted to grow it. And this doesn't mean that they can actually extract it or produce it. The hospital at that time and government hospital were the only ones who were allowed to extract it and make it into medicine, which are only a certain recipe that has been registered. So from 2019 with cannabis legalization, 2020 came the narcotics code. And the narcotics code was something that was about 10 years in the making, where all of the various narcotics act are related to narcotics, as well as anything to do with how the police can act or how the officers can act within those cases, like say they are able to seize products or not, how they are able to go in with or without a warrant, and they kind of round all those up. I think there was about 25 different acts to combine it into a code, similar to our existing civil code and our existing criminal code. That in itself, in that year also, no, I think it's that year as well, kratom became legal. So here's the progress of how it was medical cannabis, and then we got the criminal code, we got kratom. We also actually have hemp legalization as well, where CBD was then the rage at the time, where the regulation was the same as the medical cannabis. And then, because of the criminal code and how it did not mention that Schedule 5 narcotics could have cannabis in it, because they said that it was Schedule 5 narcotics such as opium and magic mushrooms. I think that's all they've actually mentioned in there, and that in itself didn't actually explicitly mean that cannabis was no longer in the narcotics code, but somehow through smoke and mirrors and political games, we managed to have the descheduling of cannabis in June 9th, about 2 years ago. And since then, we were supposed to actually have a Cannabis Act in place before June 9th came about, but it didn't happen because politics. And there was a process of Cannabis Act that went into Parliament, and then that all fell into pieces because of politics. I was part of the advisory on that committee. And now we are here, which is there is still no actual regulation for cannabis itself. Cannabis has been descheduled, but placed in Control Herb. Control Herb was actually made to control other herbs that are for pharmaceutical use, to make sure that there is no like heavy metals and whatnot, so that medicine can be made from, like, say, turmeric or cumin or ginger. So that in itself is not really made for cannabis. So the Cannabis Act still needs to be made. We, as the people, has written our version of the Cannabis Act in the past year, as the second round, because we did one before and then politics happened. This is the second time that we actually submitted into Parliament. We got our 10,000 signatures. We got people from all over of Thailand, of their, we went to held public hearing all throughout Thailand to ask them how they want cannabis to be regulated. We went to various different groups, not just pro-cannabis groups and not just business people, but also children's rights groups, as well as legal groups and people who are considered the stakeholders. That came in, we got the 10,000 petition. It's currently in Parliament and sitting on our Prime Minister's desk with 3 other Cannabis Act. 2 of them are written by the people, 1 of them by Anutin of Poonchai Thai's party, and 1 by Tao Pipop from Move Forward Party. And all 4 of them is still there on the table. Nothing is being moved. Yesterday, there was a public hearing of the announcement, of the ministry announcement draft that will bring cannabis back into being a narcotics, a Schedule 5 narcotics again, where the things that will remain legal is the leaves, the stems, the roots, and the seeds. Oh, by the way, hemp will also become illegal, become narcotics as well. So that's where we're at right now. The public hearings has got another 14 days to go, and then who knows when they will announce it. Okay,
so just so I'm clear here for myself, these bills are classed as fiscal bills, correct? They use state budget, so they need a sign off from the PM.
Absolutely.
Okay. So he'll get to that, I'm sure, when he can. อาจารย์ Pimrapee ครับผม we've touched briefly on the tourism economy or lack thereof from cannabis, but I'm also curious about the potential agricultural effects. The Phumjai Thai Party has raised cannabis as a potential cash crop for their voters in Isan. Now, with palm oil and rubber prices not reaching historic highs, is there any interest in from farmers in the South in taking up cannabis as a cash crop?
Personally, I didn't see any clear pictures of how cannabis can be a cash crop for the people, especially in the south of Thailand. For Kratom, I can have like slightly positive thinking of not being so addicted, but you know the way of having Kratom is totally different from the way of having the cannabis. But the drug addicted problem here in the south of Thailand, especially, we have to accept that the cannabis is the gateway to all the drugs, and this is not scientific. You don't have to prove for the papers, and it's proof in the public, in the village that this has happened. We don't have to prove that either the cannabis can be the gateway to the hard drug or not, but we can prove that the cannabis is not cannot prevent to go further for the hard drug. And people, when the kids start to have this as a drug addicted as a normal life, they start with cannabis and go further for the yaba and go further for amphetamine and further. And they are lacking of the sense of analytical, the sense of thinking, knowledge, and digesting. And this is very harmful to the country. Concerning the politics that's been talking about the Cannabis Act, I have to accept that this is the politician's work that has to do it. And we did it. The first time we give all the reasons, asking to bring the act back to revise. It took only 14 days with only 2 or 3 times meeting and bring the act back to the parliament. That's why all the things hasn't been clear for the point that we've been concerning with using the cannabis as regulations concerning with the kids, the brain of the kids, the motherhood, and the society in the whole. So that's why we still grateful that this act cannot be passed.
Okay, thank you. Ajahn Rasmon, so as we touched on briefly earlier, there's a new draft regulation from the Ministry of Public Health that would put cannabis back as a narcotic, which is pretty similar to how it was before de facto legalization 2 years ago. Now, what I want to know is how effective really was this tactic in the past? Frankly, have there been more addicts, or are they just more visible and open since legalization?
Back before delisting cannabis whole plant from the narcotic drug list, at the time the government already allowed the cannabis leaves to be used, and at the time the survey said the same thing, that is increased sharply as well for the cannabis use in Thailand, and but not as high as the recent 2 years after legalization. But if you look back and compare on that years to the recent 2 years, is a lot different. And so if we go back to use the same measure like before 2 years ago, I think the percentage of person who use cannabis would be still high, not to go back to the beginning before 2019, but it might decrease from the recent 2 years. And I think at the time we can use cannabis for medical purpose, for health, and I think that might be something that might be a good measure before having the Cannabis Act, which we don't know yet how long that it will be, but I think to prevent harm, because we do not have the Cannabis Act right now, so maybe go back a little bit, just to use some part of cannabis plant, maybe okay, yeah.
Thank you. P. Kitty ครับ so we've talked a bit about the potential side effects and the effects that cannabis can have on youth, on mothers, on the general population. Now, my question is all cannabis side effects the same? As in, would someone smoking a 600 baht gram be having the same side effects as someone smoking a pound of brickweed? Is cannabis affecting people in different social classes differently?
I think you're kind of skirting around the word harm, isn't it? Like it seems like, because you also said the word harm. I feel like right now no one is really able to kind of explain to me what is that definition of harm is. I agree that cannabis should not be used, by children, because that would be silly. That's the same as alcohol. They shouldn't be drinking until they are of legal age and can make their own stupid decision. I shouldn't be responsible for that. But I feel like this conversation that we're about to have or having right now is about morals somehow. It's like it's all about, it comes back to morality, and it kind of come back to the same old things of cannabis is a gateway drug, but no one's talking about alcohol or cigarettes. Like my first drugs that I actually tried was alcohol, and then that kind of led me into cigarettes. That stayed with me for a very long time. I only stopped drinking not that long ago because I had health problems. So what is the harm then, if we're going to compare it to the things that exist within our society? So effect-wise, yes, there's going to be effect of going to be different from 600 baht per gram weed or 6 baht per gram brickweed. It's no different than if you're going to eat rice that has been in storage for 10 years and new rice that just kind of harvested last year. So it's really got nothing to do with cannabis at all. And it's to do with whoever's in power, politics, and it's usually the people who's never get anything about it. So I feel like the harm that's kind of happening right now is the legal harm, the harm that people can't have the rights to access what is now their rights. 2 years it has been removed. It has came into being something that is legal. We cannot pretend that there are no users here. We cannot pretend that there is no weed tourism. I understand that the morals of it doesn't look good for Thailand, but until we actually really look at it and address it, we're not going to benefit anything from it except for a few people. So does it matter whether the 600 baht per gram weed or the 6 baht per gram weed acts any different if we're actually talking more about other harm aspect?
Right. Well, I was mainly asking that because we've seen lots of reports of people who are under the influence of weed who goes on bouts of anger, of physical violence, which aren't really the usual symptoms for cannabis smokers. So I was wondering if there was a disparity in that study or that phenomenon.
Only in Thailand that people smoke weed and start climbing the freaking electrical pole. It doesn't exist anywhere. I was at the UN, not like the CND, the Commission on Narcotics, Drugs, this March. And I raised this issue with so many delegates from around the world. And I asked them, like, does people in your country, when they use cannabis, do they go crazy like they do in the news over here? And I showed them the news, and there was usually a collection of them. And I don't have to keep them, because I can just kind of, each day, new ones will come up. And it will all be around the same thing, like, which is actually more problematics of other narcotics that also exist within Thailand. And I don't want to talk about yaba or methamphetamines, but also pharmaceutical drugs that exist. What about the cough medicine that all the kids drink mixed with gratin? And like lean, bro, all these syrups and things. So it seems like it's Thailand only because we are different. We don't bleed red blood. We bleed blue blood. That's why this type of things only happens here. And it's very sensationalized. And here's the thing, a lot of those news, the next day you will come up with, oh, guess what? They were using other drugs as well, or alcohol, or previous psychological issue. There was new news out recently that only 36% of the reports of problematic cannabis use was actually verified. So right now, what's happening is each side, the pro and the against, is just throwing their own facts at each other. I know, because I'm doing it. And they are also doing it. But here's the thing, I'm so tired, and I just want us to talk, but not bias. And that seems to be the biggest problem that we're kind of being faced right now. The stigma, the reefer madness, yeah, you use cannabis and then you're gonna end up using heroin and become a prostitute. Are we not in like 2020, fuck, where are we now? Like, I swear it's like we're going backwards, like each year, like, oh, there's war in Palestine. Dude. Okay, so I just went a little bit off that. I think that's the no sleep.
That's all right. Dr. Rasmon, so the Center for Addiction Studies is supported by the Thai Health Promotion Foundation, or the SAW, which many Thai people will be more familiar with their ads on stop smoking ads, stop drinking ads. How has the organization's focus shifted since legalization, and has the Center for Addiction Studies been looking more at the effects on cannabis in the past 2 years?
So for the campaign for stop smoking or stop drinking alcohol, Thai Health Promotion Foundation seems to is the main focus. Yeah. But after legalization, they concerned about this as well, and try to educate people about, especially for the young people, to not using cannabis, and also try to balance, because at the beginning it's not talk a lot about harmful effect of cannabis, but because at the time it's still illegal, so at that time because we Thai people want to get the benefit from cannabis, so we talk about the benefit of cannabis. So need to educate people about what to use, for what indication, for medical purpose, what indication for using cannabis, and also need to be careful about for someone who didn't have to use cannabis, and be careful about this. I think Thai Herb Promotion Foundation try to say about this as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll now be opening up the floor to Q&A. If anybody in the audience has a question, our mic is set up right in front of the bar over there. Oh, there we go. You could.
Hi, good evening. May Wong from CNA. This is an interesting subject, obviously, and I can see that Kitty is very, very passionate about this. Just wanted to ask a couple of questions, really. Number one is, you said that the talks and discussions seem to be going nowhere. So I'm just wondering, come June the 25th, which is the deadline for this dialogue, public dialogue to take place and to end, what do you think is actually going to happen thereafter? My other question is, this obviously is political, as you have suggested. So it's not about the real welfare of the people, but it's because of political issues, political parties. So, I mean, at the end of the day, right, how do we move forward from here in order to address this issue? And what does recriminalizing cannabis really mean for Thailand? Not just to you, but to the two Ajahns as well, if you can talk about that. What does it really mean for Thailand? Because Thailand was the first to decriminalize cannabis in Southeast Asia, and now you want to recriminalize it. So what does it really mean for the country? Thank you.
All right, PKD, do you want to take the first question?
Okay, so the first question, can you re-summarize the first question again? I just kind of got focused on the legal, recriminalize it.
Right, well, okay, that was my final question, but going back to my first question is, come June 25th, what do you expect to happen, to really happen?
The public hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's delayed right now. So the public hearing that is being set up right now is all done online, which is kind of funny, the fact that you can just put in your name and your opinion into the form, and somehow that seems to be counted for a public opinion. No issue with the system whatsoever. After that, it can take them a week or less to make the announcement, which then kind of remove our ability to try to push for the possibility of having cannabis being under the control of the Cannabis Act rather than a narcotics code. That would suck, but we haven't still figured out our plans of how to retaliate with the information of that came from the negotiation table yet. So wait a few days, because we need to rest a little bit before we can kind of plan.
Sounds good. Dr. Pimrapee, could you take the second question on what would the recriminalization of cannabis mean for Thailand, and then Kun Kitty can add her thoughts afterwards.
I'm not pretty sure what's the questions again about the recriminalizations of cannabis in Thailand. I mean that the problem, I may have the answers about the politics. People claim that the cannabis couldn't happen for the political reasons. I have to accept that because of two reasons. Firstly, the Cannabis Act was proposed because of political reasons. And secondly, the Cannabis Act was opposed, declined from the parliament. If from the political reasons, it's not about the political reasons only. But if you have heard what we debate in the parliament, it's about the health, it's about the responsibilities, it's about the costs that we have to pay for this kind of change. And it's about the responsibilities for the people, the children, the kids, the women, the pregnant lady, and also the many doctors has signed, declared that there needs to prevent this act. If you say about to arrest 1,000 10,000 signatures for that kind of things. We have to accept that if we are in democracy country, MP or the parliament who said the last word to what act should be passed. So from the last time, it's proof that we still have to delay and we cannot accept that. And it's proof that we asked to revise 2 times back to the committee of that act. So I rather push to have this back to the legal things for the cannabis.
Okay, thank you. Kitty.
Let me answer that question for you. Those who have possession of cannabis will be considered possessing Schedule 5 narcotics, which will equals to jail time and fines. Those who use and have THC in the system will be considered a user of Schedule 5 narcotics, which also have jail time and fines. Those who are cultivating will now be considered cultivating Schedule 5 narcotics that also have an even higher jail time and fine. So the random grandmother who has a single weed plant in the back of her house to use, I don't know how you would call it, whether it's recreational or medical, but what she does is she puts it into a kettle and she makes her coffee with that water. She will become a Schedule 5 narcotics. She'll get in for possession on top of use, on top of cultivation, not extraction, but if she makes oil with it, then it's extraction. And then there's probably a few other things that she'll probably get into trouble for. And I never wanted to see that ever again. It's never the rich or the one with money or the privilege who gets to be standing behind the table when the police take a picture of you with a flimsy, dead-looking cannabis plant. It's always the poor, the one who don't have a voice, the one who don't know the law that will get it. But this is Thailand, where there's obvious problems. So that's part of it. And then don't forget about the shops and the farms and all those people who have their information given to the government for requesting to grow. That 1 million plus people with their addresses, their phone number as well, and the farms and the shop with the license, with all their details and their bank accounts. It would also mean that the banks can kind of withhold and seize finances, take things into possession and seize, and then hold it out at auction, even before the case is even finished. So this is the regulation where cannabis would then be under, rather than something that is a bit more open to people's rights to access, fair rights to access. And I'm not talking about growing really stinky, dang weed. I'm talking about those people who don't always live near to a hospital, where this is their, Panadol, like a simple pain reliever. And it's not usually used in the way that we see it's used or pictured. It's used just like that old lady, grabbing a couple of leaves. There may be some flowers that goes into that pot. It may be added into chicken soup or curries to kind of give it a bit more of an oomph, because it's like a natural MSG. But all of this is gonna go. Oh, and don't forget, I'm sorry, I'm on a little bit of a rant on this one. The knowledge that we managed to came up with in the past 2 years regarding cultivation, production, anything to do with cannabis will disappear. Our strains that are very local to Thailand or indigenous to us will disappear. No one will be able to preserve it ever again. And this is a new market, and genetics is quite valuable. And we're just gonna throw that out the window. And we're gonna throw so many things out the window, but like the ones that I'm most afraid of is our tradition, our culture, and our heritage. And cannabis is part of it. Unfortunately, a lot of people really feel that it's embarrassing that it is a part of their culture.
Thank you. Dr. Rasmon, do you have anything to add?
Oh, I think for the question about recriminalization, I think right now the Drug Act that we had already decriminalized people who use drugs already. So that means now even the hard drug like heroin or yaba, if someone use the illegal substance like that, not everyone go to jail. They have the right now we kind of see the people who use drugs like a person who have a health issue or something. So that means even going to the Narcotic Drug Act, right now the Drug Act already decriminalization for the people who use drugs. So I think for the person who still get dependent on cannabis or need cannabis, so somehow if they get caught or arrested, I think they have some way to be helped about that. And for the new the announcement that need the public hearing, I think only the flowers, the buds, that still be in the narcotic drug list, but for the whole plant, they can still possess the plant because it's not illegal in that announcement. So in my personal opinion, I think even after the announcement of this, people still having their own cannabis, and it's very, very difficult to monitor the flowers in each house that if they had or not or something, because the whole plant still, but only the buds that be the narcotic drug list, but the whole plant still legalized. So I think for the announcement, it just make the people be aware of that using cannabis now, especially the flowers of buds is illegal, but for the official action, people still can grow cannabis plant in their house. So that means I'm not sure that at the end the percentage of the prevalence of people who use cannabis will drop or increase or something, but in some group they're still concerned about this, that the whole plant still legalized, just the bud that is illegal.
May I add, please?
Sure.
The plant in itself, yes, there is a way for you to go into rehab, which is technically a forced rehab, which is no different than a hospital jail. Well, that's what I see it is. And you can only do that a few times before you then will be charged criminally. That's for use. But the possession and the cultivation, there's no around it. There is no way that the government will allow for the people to be able to grow or cultivate narcotics. With the thing, yes, they didn't actually criminalize the flower. In the announcement, it says cannabis, but the only parts that are legal are the leaves, stems, roots, and seeds. So the plant in itself, the cultivation of it, will not be obtainable by the public, which also actually means that the people who are able to obtain are the ones who have the money to pay for the licenses. They are also looking at making everything kind of medical, which is you have to have a pharmacist and maybe a doctor, Thai traditional medicine, to be able to prescribe the flowers. That's what I heard from the room with the big business people that was in there when I was at the health ministry for the negotiation.
Thank you. If there are no other questions from the audience, I'd like to thank all our speakers today for coming, providing an informative discussion. A bit of housekeeping. Next week we will have a panel. It will be a photo gallery. It will be a launch of the exhibition on In the Shadow of Skyscrapers by photographer Ben Buckland. Of course, next Tuesday is also a board game night, and then our next trivia will be June 28th. All right, thank you for coming, and then have a good night.